Let's design a custom contact form with a few more fields and walk through all the settings included in Wix's forms. First off, we're going to make this strip a little bigger so we have space for this form. And all of these elements sit within the Wix Forms module. So we're going to need to make this module bigger so we have space for more form fields. And then we're going to walk through all these different settings. Okay, first up we have form settings. Right off the bat on the main tab, you can go check out your submissions if you've been collecting submissions, but also what's helpful here is to set up email notifications. When people submit this form, it'll send out notifications with that information to all the emails on the team under roles and permissions. We walked through that earlier. You could select who on the team is actually going to get those. Now, say you built this website for somebody else. They're not managing the website themselves. You're managing it for them, but they need to receive the emails when people contact them on their form. You could add a new email here. If you don't have Wix's upgraded send plans, that's what this is, then you can only have 2 emails here, so it might be yourself and the owner of that business. Okay, so we'll leave about on-site team for now. Now, you can set up different functionality when somebody submits the form. You could have a little message like, thanks for submitting. You could take them to a new page, like a thank you page, and I like to do that. You can add a little thank you message, a little thank you video, or something like that on that thank you page. And it's also helpful in the future if you're advertising to track your conversions. So I like to set up thank you pages. There's other ways you can do it though. You could link to a file download, right? If, for example, earlier on our pop-up, the deal was when they submit the form, they're supposed to get a travel guide to Thailand. So we would need to upgrade our SIN plan so that people, when they submitted that form, they would get that file download. You could also link to an external URL. Maybe it takes them to google.com or whatever. Okay. Next setting is payment. So we're not going to go into this because we're not going to upgrade our SIN plan right now, but you can create a custom checkout form. So you have some kind of custom product that you need to collect information for, and you can't use Wix's store options, or maybe you're collecting donations. The Wix payment form would be the option for you. You can also set up conditionals. So that would be a field that shows based on the answers to a previous field. So say you have a question that says, have you ever been to this location before? If you check yes, then the next field that pops up is, great, what's your name? And if you say no, then the answer might be, okay, when would you like to visit? Something like that, right? So it's a field that depends on the answers to another field. The next tab is contacts. You can label the people who are using this form. So this might be, you might label them as general contact form or something like that. And for a different form, it might be newsletter subscribers, right? Like on our front page. Okay, the next tab is automations. Automations are super useful. I really recommend you look into automating some of your workflow. Automations are actions that happen once the visitor takes an action. So they'll submit this form and you might automatically send them a thank you email and then create a new task to call them directly or email them directly or invoice them or whatever functionality you need for your specific business. Automations are going to save you a lot of time. I use a variety of different automations in my own business. So as you start scaling and you find that you're doing things over and over and over again manually, anything that's being done over and over and over again in the exact same way, you can probably find a way to automate it. And this is one of those places you can probably automate some of your work. Email marketing, I don't really know why this is linked in the forums, but you can set up email campaigns, and we'll talk about that later on in the course. Okay, so that's all our settings. The next tab for Wix Forms itself is add new fields. You can add a bunch of different fields, and looking through here, for almost any form, you're going to want to add a reCAPTCHA. That's these I'm not a robot fields, and these keep you from getting a lot of spam. The more popular and more traffic you get to your site, the more likely you're going to start having spammers who are just really there to annoy you. So I really recommend you add reCAPTCHAs to all your fields to keep the spam down. And let's just add a couple of different fields. So these are our standard contact fields, but then the basic fields is custom fields we can make. So let's add a question that says something like, where would you like to travel to? And it gives them a drop down. We're going to add that, and let's also add one more field like what's your travel budget, and we'll do radio buttons for that. Okay. Now we can click into that drop down and manage choices. And so this is going to be where do you want to travel to, right? So let's put that into the placeholder text. And then we'll manage those choices. And you can just double click on these to change the names of those choices. And then in the radio buttons, we can do a similar thing. We can manage choices. And this is going to be our travel budget. So let's say $0 to $5,000, $5,000 to $20,000, $20,000 plus some high rollers. Oh, and let's add that field to make it ask, what is your travel budget? For radio buttons, you can also select a pre-selected field. You can also make any of these fields required. I'd recommend doing that for things like email. So under edit field, this field is required. Okay, so now let's reorganize this a little bit and then style it to match the rest of our site. So let's move the recapture to the bottom. We can put it across the way from the submit button. And I think the message should be the last thing. Before that, we can add where do you want to travel there. What is your travel budget? I don't really like the way that looks. I might take the borders off these. We'll see. Okay. So there's our form. We don't really need the form title because it's right there. Let's delete that. And we'll move all of our fields up. Now we actually need to make this a little smaller too because it's not fitting correctly into our dotted lines on our columns, which means that at some screen sizes, some of the stuff might get cut off. So I'm going to click on each field and resize it. And the size is over here. I'll resize these down to 225 pixels wide. And let's actually add a little bit of breathing room between each one of these fields, like this. Just so they're not laying directly on top of each other. It felt a little tight to me. Alright, so we've almost got everything resized. Thanks for submitting my contact form. I'll be in touch soon. Don't forget about little touches like your success messages when you submit a form. It's all these little things that humanize your business and make it interesting to people. That's obviously not the best submission text, but anything that makes things a little more personal, people are going to appreciate. Okay, we made that a little tighter. Now it's fitting correctly. Now we just need to remove this white background and change the design to make it fit a little better. Before I do that, let me just walk through all the fields so you're aware of what each one is. So there's the standard contact fields, but then in basic fields you have short text, which would be like first name, a paragraph field, which would be like the message, so you can write multiple lines of text. Number field would mean that you can only put in numbers. Radio buttons is like a multiple choice, like this. Checkbox is a single checkbox, so something like, do you wish to receive communications from this business? Multi-checkbox is exactly what it sounds like. You can check multiple boxes. This would be something like, what toppings do you want on your pizza? And you could check pepperoni, jalapeno, pineapple, ham, whatever. Maybe that's not a good pizza. Anyway, drop-down field would be like, where do you want to travel to? Rating field, you could give them a star rating. Date field, you can only put in a date. Time, you can only put in a time. URL, you are required to put in a link, like what's your website. Subscriber opt-in would really be something we would need on that newsletter sign up on the homepage. Subscriber opt-in is just asking for permission to send emails to people. And then in the advanced fields, you need to upgrade your SIN plan, but you could also request file uploads and even have them sign the form if you need a signature for something. Okay. Next, we have layout, and we're going to keep this pretty much as is. This is already the way I want it. Okay, and then in design, we'll do what we did to the form earlier, and I'll fast forward for some of this, but we're going to just make this match the rest of our brand. All right, so our form's ready to go. We've removed the background, added a couple options, customized our submission message, we added a reCAPTCHA. This form is ready for us to use on our travel blog. All right, let's get to the next video.